Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Live and Learn podcast. So we're doing well on this Wednesday, August the 20th. Happy birthday to my good friend, my brother, Dawson Warman. Happy 29th, almost 30, old guy. We are back tonight to start off our NFL divisional preview series that I do every summer, back end of summer towards the start of the NFL season. These are 4 different shows where I preview AFC North, NFC North, AFC West, NFC West, and so on and so forth. We got the first show tonight. We're covering the AFC/NFC North. Friday, we're doing AFC/NFC South. Next week, we will be doing the West and the East as we get closer to the NFL season. How I do these, it's a lot of prep, a lot of notes. It's great for me. I learn where I get to know where each and every player is, quarterback situation, depth charts, additions, subtractions from the offseason. It's awesome. I love doing it. And we'll be doing 4 of these podcasts as we get closer to the NFL season. The NFL season starts 2 weeks tomorrow, September 4th, the Dallas Cowboys in Philadelphia to play the champs. But tonight, we're talking AFC, NFC North. And 2 very interesting, 2 very competitive divisions. And we're going to go through, we'll talk, and at the end, we'll get to where I see these teams finishing, who's going to have a great year, things like that we'll touch on throughout the podcast. So let's start with the team that was the most interesting in this division this offseason, just when it comes to moves, players, all of that. That would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin will be entering his 18th season as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The first 17, he's never finished under 500. He's never had a losing record in his tenure. And that's while having old Ben Roethlisberger. That's while having Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. It didn't matter. They found a way to be competitive. They found a way in most years to have a better record than the Cincinnati Bengals, which is crazy. But this season, there's a different feel in Pittsburgh. It feels like making the playoffs and being competitive is not enough. They need to push for a Super Bowl. They need to be relevant. Making the playoffs and losing in Wild Card Weekend, it's nice. Organizations would kill for it. But, the Cleveland Browns, their division rival, beat the Steelers in a playoff game a number of years ago. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game in almost a decade. So Mike Tomlin, who got an extension this offseason, to me is on the hot seat a little bit. He would be scooped up in 5 seconds by 95% of teams in the NFL. The Steelers have had 3 coaches in 60 years. It's incredible what they do there. But also you want to win. And you want to be a team that's feared. They're not. So they've gone through quarterback, Kenny Pickett. They had Russell Wilson, Justin Fields last year. Both those guys are gone to the Meadowlands. And the Steelers, after months of procrastinating, what are we going to do, decided to trade for the enigma, the darkness retreat expert, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, now 41, entering his presumably final NFL season, had a tumultuous couple years with the New York Jets. 0 playoff wins, 0 playoff appearances, and missing an entire season because of a torn Achilles that he suffered on the 6th play from scrimmage that season. Last year, he looked slow. He looked old. He's not as willing to stay in the pocket and take the hits like he used to. He's not as athletic because he's 40. But they're desperate. They're taking a chance on him for 1 year and seeing what they can do with this 1 year. And would Aaron have been my first choice? And I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. Do I agree with everything that he's done? No. Do I think he's an awful guy? No. Lying about taking the vaccine. I don't think that was, a cardinal sin, if you will. And that's odd coming from an atheist, but bear with me. You basically had to lie because if you said you didn't want to take it, you were, a de facto terrorist. So that's not a big sin to me. Him doing weird things, having political opinions, he's entitled to that. People on the left might not like him, okay? That is what it is. The biggest thing in the NFL, it's not where you vote, it's not who you like, it's not where you take a shit. It's can you play? Last year, back half of the season, he had the 10th highest QBR in the league. That's pretty good. That'll get you somewhere. But can he do that from the jump? Can he play good football from the beginning? That's the question. Now, it's not all on Aaron. They got Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, Caleb Johnson, who they drafted in the 3rd round from the University of Iowa. Solid running backs. They lose Najee Harris to the Chargers. Pat Freiermuth still there. They add Jonnu Smith from the Miami Dolphins. Darnell Washington, former University of Georgia, 2-time national champion, still there. Also, they added DK Metcalf. Trade in the offseason. Seahawks looking to move off him. They take on DK Metcalf, pairing him with Calvin Austin Jr. III, Robert Woods, the veteran, and Roman Wilson, who's entering his 3rd year coming out of University of Notre Dame. It's a serviceable offense. I love Freiermuth. His ability to run middle of the field, tough catches. I think he's going to be great in the red zone for Aaron. Him finding Jermichael Finley back in the day for touchdown. Just a big body that can create space, and he's tough. I love him. Jonnu Smith had a career year last year in Miami for catches, targets, receiving yards, all of the above. If the Steelers are going to be successful, it can't just be because of Aaron. I think they're going to run the football a lot, and I think they're going to do a lot of play action, bootlegs, and give him the ability to be the quarterback, but also have plays off, if you will. A lot of 13 personnel, 3 tight end sets, where you have blockers, you have guys in space, easy throws for Aaron to complete, move the sticks, make sure it's 2nd and 3 and not 2nd and 13. Now, how he works with DK Metcalf, who knows? DK Metcalf is one of the most talented receivers in football when he wants to be. But he's kind of like Aaron. He's an enigma. He takes plays off. He's definitely got a tone about him that can be negative, that can be bitchy. Robert Woods is an older player that's didn't really play much in Houston the last couple of years, mainly special teams. So, is it an elite wide receiver room? No. Is it serviceable? Yes. Could DK Metcalf have 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns and be a Pro Bowler? Yeah. Because he was effective with Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson was on the decline leaving Seattle. DK Metcalf was successful playing with Geno Smith the last number of years. So he absolutely can have success with Aaron, a future Hall of Famer, regardless of his age. Defensively, they re-signed TJ Watt, giving him a big extension for big money. Cam Hayward still holding in, wants more money. We'll see what happens there. Joey Porter Jr. at corner. They added Jalen Ramsey from the Dolphins, Super Bowl champ. Juan Thornhill added from the Chiefs, the Super Bowl champ. Darius Slay added from the Eagles, Super Bowl champ last year. So a lot of guys that have experience, a lot of guys that have had success. It's an older secondary, which can be a bit worrisome to me. Jalen Ramsey's, there's a reason he bounces around. He was calling out Mike McDaniel for really not setting a culture, not being a great leader in Miami. He's been very vocal about that. He was vocal in Jacksonville, partly why he got traded to the Rams. So, not that he's not a good teammate, not that he's not a good player. But in the NFL, when you play for 4 teams and you're not a journeyman quarterback, there's typically, something smells. Something's wrong there. But he can still play in his early 30s. Darius Slay, we thought he could retire after winning with the Eagles. He had 1 year left on his deal, was ready to play it out. They decided to release him in a surprising move, but they wanted to give a contract extension to Saquon, and they wanted to give more money to some of their defensive players, and he was a cap casualty. So he leaves from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. This is an old team. Aaron's 41, TJ Watt's 32, Cam Hayward's 34, Jalen Ramsey's 32, Darius Slay's 35. Robert Woods is 34. That doesn't mean they can't be good, but that's an old NFL team. And this team has incredible pressure internally and externally to be good. And you're playing in a division that we'll get to that's very competitive and has a lot of good teams and a lot of teams that have better players than the Steelers do, quite frankly. They're returning the same offensive line that was solid last year. It wasn't great, but it was an offensive line that was kind of much maligned because Russell Wilson loves to take sacks. He likes to play himself into sacks. One of Aaron's biggest strengths is avoiding sacks. Knowing when the pocket's collapsing, making adjustments so that you don't get killed. But if Calvin Austin takes time to get open, if Roman Wilson's slow, if it's Freiermuth, will Aaron hang in the pocket long enough to let that play create, to let it develop? Because if he doesn't, this team's screwed. Betting against Mike Tomlin to be 500 or above is a stupid bet because he's never done it. And while we're going to get 2 teams in this division that I think are better than the Steelers, we're also going to be talking about teams in this division that are pretty incompetent when it comes to signing players, when it comes to building a competitive team and putting out a great product. So while the Steelers had a patchwork offseason that could go a multitude of different ways, this team's fascinating to me because I think it could be really good, but could also be a colossal train wreck. And that's what you want. I'm going to see the movie Weapons on Friday. I haven't read anything about it. I know it's a horror movie. I want it to be compelling. That's all I want. This, I think, is going to be compelling TV. If you're a Steelers fan, if you got them on Red Zone, don't get Red Zone, by the way. If you got DAZN and you can put it in the 4-box, better solution, do that. Because I think the Steelers are going to be in close games. You want to watch Aaron because he's always doing something. Mike Tomlin will be he'll be looking studly with the Jesus, rocking, and they'll be interesting. That I know for sure. Would I bet against them to go under 500? No, it's a stupid bet. Steelers playoffs, we'll reveal that different podcast. Will they be competitive? Yes. Above 500? Yes. As I go through the whole division, I'll tell you where I think these teams finish, so bear with me. Let's move to Cleveland. We've talked about Cleveland a bit this offseason. Currently, they have 5 quarterbacks in training camp. Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, Snoop Huntley. Oh, and I guess they have a 6th, Deshaun Watson. But Deshaun's recovering from a torn Achilles. Joe Flacco has been named the team's starting quarterback for week 1. How long that goes remains to be seen. Head coach is Kevin Stefanski. He's been the coach there for 6 years. And crazy enough, he's been coach of the year twice. And while he's been coach of the year twice, I do think he's on the hot seat. And I'll put it this way. If Kevin Stefanski is not fired at the end of the year, then I think the Browns have had a crazy good season because they have one of the toughest schedules in football. We'll get to that. And just their team isn't that good. And they're so confusing. And they got a 41-year-old quarterback. Yes, the Steelers also have one, but Aaron's a little different. You got 2 rookies that you took in the same draft class at quarterback. That never happens. And it's a confusing setup. Why is this happening? Why are they doing it this way? The Browns drafted a couple running backs, took Quinshon Judkins from The Ohio State, national champion, drafted Dylan Sampson in the 4th round out of the University of Tennessee. Go Volunteers. I like both running backs. Judkins was originally at Ole Miss, transferred to Ohio State. So I like their additions at running back. Wide receivers, it's Jerry Jeudy, hit and miss. Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson, who's bounced around. David Njoku, I like him. Tight end, been there a long time. Love David Njoku. Offensive line, returning the same 5 as last year. Joel Bitonio at left tackle. Ethan Piocic, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin. Piocic and Conklin missed 95% of the season last year with season-ending injuries. So it's tough to read how this offensive line is going to gel. They're an older offensive line. But that doesn't mean they won't be good. That doesn't mean they can't come together and play well. The thing for me is not how good Cleveland's going to be, because I think optimally they want to have the top pick in the draft. Their ownership, if they could choose a path, it's let's get the number 1 pick in the draft and get a quarterback in this year, whether that's Arch Manning if he comes out early, whether that's Lenore Sellers from South Carolina, or Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, Drew Aller at Penn State. There could be 5 quarterbacks that go in the first round of the 2026 NFL draft. Could be less, but could be that many, depending on how the season goes. And Cade Klubnik, another guy at Clemson, that's very good. But Joe Flacco, likely last year, 18th season in the NFL, Super Bowl champion. I think Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel will both start games for the Cleveland Browns this year at some point. The Browns open against the rival, the Bengals. Let's find their schedule and read it out. We went over this, but if you're listening now, it's an interesting little experiment to do. Either I find it good to do, just to look at when there's going to be change. So, September 7th, open hosting the Bengals. September 14th, at the Ravens. Following week, host the Packers. At Detroit. Host Minnesota in London. At Steelers, October 19th, host the Dolphins. That's their first easy game. Their first winnable game, if you will, on their schedule. Because Dolphins aren't going to be good. That's probably when you make a quarterback change. After that 6-week period. After you go to London and come back. Maybe it's before. But after that 6-game stretch, they play Dolphins, Patriots, bye week, Jets. That's not an easy stretch for the Cleveland Browns, but it's the easiest stretch they're going to get to make a change, to bring on Shedeur, bring on Dillon Gabriel, and make that pivot. Cleveland's by far the worst team in this division, in my humble opinion. You'd like to see productivity from the running backs. You'd like to see development from the rookies this year if they want to give them a try, give them a look, an actual look. But that'll be the watch. It's not, okay, let's watch Cleveland early on to see them play Joe Flacco and him throw the ball to Jerry Jeudy. It's a great story for him to be playing at 41, but it's not the interesting story. It's not, if you're a writer, you're not clamoring for that. It's not the interesting one. Defensively, they re-signed Myles Garrett. They kept Myles. Gave him a huge extension. Record money for a defensive player. They drafted Mason Graham 5th overall from Michigan. He's been great for a long time in Michigan. Won a national championship. Drafted Carson Schlesinger, 2nd-round pick out of UCLA to play linebacker. Denzel Ward, some concern. He's had a lot of injuries at corner. So, I see a comment here. Yeah, we'll get to the Bears. We'll get to the Bears. They're next. AFC, then NFC North. So, Cleveland is fascinating later as the season goes on. They're not interesting the first couple weeks of the season. They're hoping for better quarterbacks. They're hoping for a stronger future. I believe that they will be likely one of the 3 worst teams in football. Really tough schedule, a team that doesn't have a whole lot of talent. But you want to see Shedeur, you want to see Dillon Gabriel and make some judgments, show that they could play. if you do get a top 3 pick and want to take a quarterback in this year's draft, you could trade one of those guys for value and try to get better, try to find good pieces to pair with them. I think their defense will be competitive because it always is. It was last year. Myles Garrett's still a great player. Just for 95% of his career, he's been an awesome player on a bad team. The only good quarterback he's ever been paired with is, oddly enough, Baker Mayfield, who they took number 1 overall, who they gave up on way too soon. Because Shake and Bake can play. He's a dog. Killing it for Tampa. But yeah, Cleveland, we'll see. But I don't love their chances. Let's pivot to Cincinnati, who the Browns will play in week 1. To be a Bengals fan has to be just frustrating because you hit the lottery and get Joe Burrow. National champion, incredibly talented, smart, charisma. He's got it all. He's just a great player. You somehow get to a Super Bowl, beating Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs along the way. You're a play away from winning a Super Bowl, but Aaron Donald ruins your life, beating a bad offensive line. Go figure. And now they haven't been to the Super Bowl in 4 years. They didn't make the playoffs last year. And despite that, we go into a season with a lot of question marks in Cincinnati. Zach Taylor is still the head coach. That's sort of surprising. A team with expectations misses the playoffs. Zach Taylor returns. Heading into the offseason, they knew they had to give new contracts to wide receivers. They gave a massive contract to Jamar Chase. They gave lesser money, but still a big deal to T. Higgins, keeping both wide receivers in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. Re-signing Mike Gesicki. Signing Noah Fant off the scrap heap from Seattle. Eric All, tight end from Iowa, who tore his ACL, will return. I like their tight end room. Cincinnati's going to have a new defensive coordinator that we'll talk about. But if you've watched the preseason, if you've watched Monday night, if you just follow Cincinnati as a whole, this team does 2 things poorly: negotiate contracts and protect their quarterback. Those are 2 things specifically that they just don't do well. Since entering the league, no quarterback has got sacked more than Joe Burrow. Now, Caleb Williams might join that club, but he's only played 1 year. Now, Caleb Williams got sacked the most by a rookie, I believe in 40 years, the first time in 40 years, last season. But Joe Burrow gets sacked a ton. Does he hold on to the ball too long? Sometimes, like every quarterback does, but I wouldn't say that's his Achilles heel. That's not something you notice to go, okay, Joe Burrow, he stays in the pocket too long. No. He slings the ball down the field. He's amazing. But their offensive line continues to be worrisome. You worry that he's going to get hurt. You worry that it could go up in flames just like that for Joe Burrow. Offensively, I love their team. Jamar Chase is as good as it gets at the position. T. Higgins being your number 2. Hard to beat that. A big-bodied wide receiver is probably going to get close to 1,000 yards as your number 2. Gesicki was kind of Joe Burrow's safety blanket last year. Seemed like every big third down he'd find Mike Gesicki. Gesicki had 7 touchdown receptions. For fantasy owners, look for Eric All. I think Eric All is going to have a sneaky good season. Chase Brown, the Canadian, good running back. Needs to get more opportunities, but he's solid. He's quick. They're going to score points. Now, they need to start week 1. They can't have a start to a season where 2 years ago they lost to the Browns week 1. Last year they lost to the Patriots in week 1. Need to get a win. That loss to the Patriots cost them the playoffs. Every game is important. That's right, every game, including week 1. Offensive line, Orlando Brown Jr. returns, their left tackle. Dylan Fairchild is an addition from college. Ted Karras, former center with the Patriots. Lucas Patrick comes over from the Chiefs to play right guard. And Aquarius Mims enters his second season from Alabama. Protect Joe. That's their job. They haven't done a great job of it. Throughout the majority of his career, they haven't done a great job of it. They need to keep him healthy. Because if he gets hurt, their season is over. Period. You can say that about most teams, but with Cincinnati, it's 100% true. Because last year, they were 27th against the pass, their defense. They were 29th against the run. They gave up the 3rd most large chunk plays in the NFL. If they were an average defensive team last year, they would have made the playoffs. They weren't. They were abysmal. They missed. Trey Hendrickson, who led the NFL in sacks, who's had more sacks over the last 3 years than TJ Watt, a player in his own division who got a huge deal, remains as a hold-in, is reportedly on the trade block, and there's no real end in sight. It could end up being a trade. If they don't sign Trey Hendrickson, if he's not on the field, it's organizational malpractice, and this team is screwed. Because did they make changes? Sure. Shamar Stewart was taken number 22 overall. Good player, but he's had some injury problems, didn't sign his contract. Drafted Demetrius Knight, rookie linebacker. Cam Taylor, Britt, Daxton Hill. Good player. I think will have a better year. But Trey Hendrickson's that foundation. He's their edge rusher. He brings pressure. Offense's game plan for him. Nobody else on this defense. I love Joe Burrow. I do. I think he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, alongside a quarterback in his own division that we'll get to in just a minute. But I don't trust the organization. I don't trust them without Trey Hendrickson. Even with Trey Hendrickson, I have my doubts. Will their defense improve? It has to, because it'd be pretty hard for it to be worse. But they need to start on time, and they need to win early. Cincinnati, we know, opens with the Browns in Cleveland. Host the Jaguars the following week. Go to the Vikings. Then play the Broncos Sunday Night Football. Host the Lions, at the Packers, Steelers. That's their first couple weeks. No gimmies in there. Other than that, the first 2, you got to win. You got to beat Jacksonville and you got to beat Cleveland. Period. Because they have an aura being this great. They're not. They have a great quarterback and an average group. Is Jamar Chase elite? Second best receiver in the league, maybe? Yeah, behind Justin Jefferson? Sure. But that combination missed the playoffs last year. Woof. That brings us to Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens won the division last year, and they're going to win the division again this year. John Harbaugh never leaves Baltimore. Old John Harbaugh. Lamar Jackson could have won the MVP again last year, but they gave it to Josh Allen. No problem there. Derrick Henry, huge season, is aiming for 2,000 yards rushing this year, pairing him with Justice Hill. A lot of guys coming back. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Great 1-2 tandem at tight end. Zay Flowers. Got injured towards the end of the year. I love Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman. They signed DeAndre Hopkins, who comes over from Kansas City. They draft LeJohntay Wester. Look out for this guy. Special teams, big playability. Played at the University of Colorado under Coach Prime. Love this offense. No questions about this offense. They have the second best quarterback in the league in my estimation because I have number 15, number 1. But Lamar's number 2. And they would have beat the Bills last year if their defense could get a stop. They couldn't do it. Offensive line, I'm not really concerned about. They'll do their thing. A lot of the same guys. They're productive. They run the ball extremely well behind this offensive line. Does Lamar need to play better in the playoffs? Sure. I think he can. I think he will because I just believe in talent at the end of the day. My big concern with the Ravens is I think they have a lot of good players. Justin Madubuike, good player, the defensive line. Broderick Washington, good player. Adolfo Owe, good player. Raquan Smith, linebacker, good player. Kyle Van Noy, who got brought in mid-season, had an awesome year. Led the team in sacks. Kyle Hamilton, stud. Malachi Starks, fun. They bring over Jair Alexander from Green Bay. Could be great. Marlon Humphrey, been a Pro Bowler for years. So I like them all. I don't see them having an elite edge rusher. And I like teams that have an elite edge rusher. The Kansas City Chiefs have had Chris Jones. They've made it to a lot of Super Bowls, and they've won a couple. That helps, I think, anyway. The Eagles. Well, I mean, pick one. They've had a plethora of guys that could be considered number 1. Jalen Carter comes to mind last year and how just great he was, in particular that game against the Rams. So, to me, Baltimore, could they have a great regular season, finish with the best record in the AFC? Maybe. I think it's going to be hard to do because I think it could be Buffalo this year. Wait for that. We'll do a prediction show as we get closer. But I'd love to see them, and it's unfortunate because it looked like, okay, Myles Garrett could be on the market. Trey Hendrickson could be on the market. Those are in division. Those trades aren't happening. If a bad team decides to sell, I want them to be in on edge rushers. Maybe New Orleans wants to trade Cam Jordan. He's up there in age, but he's still productive. He's a potential option. Finding guys that can be a 1, or maybe they're a 1B, but in a system full of really good players, they become a number 1. Having that elite pass rusher that can change a game. Aaron Donald with the Rams, Jalen Carter with the Eagles, Chris Jones with the Chiefs. You need it. To me, you need it. I love Kyle Hamilton. He's one of the best safeties in the league. Roquan Smith's awesome. Madubuike, good player, but they're not game breakers. Baltimore doesn't have one. As much as I didn't like Ray Lewis, and I still think he's a bit of a scumbag, he was a great player. Great player, and he was a game wrecker. Ed Reed, game wrecker, game changer. I'm dropping the name. Old Spice, my God, no. Troy Polamalu, game breaker, great hair. These guys in this division were game wreckers, game changers. Baltimore doesn't really have one right now. But finding a team that you go, okay, maybe we can make a trade. It helps them. It helps us. They're hoping for draft picks. We'll help them do that. Whether that's New Orleans, likely not Cleveland, because Cleveland's not going to trade with Baltimore in division. But you scour the league and you go, okay, maybe there's something here. AFC North, I got Baltimore winning the division. I think Baltimore will have a great record. Will they have the best record in the AFC? We'll talk about that more as we get close to predictions. I don't think they will, though. Spoiler. But for them, it's very simple. It's Super Bowl or bust. Lamar, another MVP would be great, but it's about getting over that hump. For him, winning a Super Bowl. That's what it is at this point. Number 2 in this division. This pains me, honestly, because this team shouldn't be number 2 in this division. Really shouldn't. But I'm going with Pittsburgh. Because I have more faith in Pittsburgh than I do Cincinnati. Fundamentally, as an organization, is Joe Burrow better than Aaron Rodgers? Yes. Is Jamar Chase better than DK Metcalf? Yes. Is T. Higgins better than Roman Wilson? Yes. Is Gesicki better than Freiermuth? I'll take Freiermuth. But you go through it. You go, Cincinnati's got better players than Pittsburgh, top to bottom. Okay? Yeah. But the Steelers beat the Bengals twice last year with Russell Wilson. And the Bengals lose stupid games. And Trey Hendrickson isn't signed yet. And their defense hasn't changed all that much, and I don't trust it. Yes, they got Al Golden, new defensive coordinator from Notre Dame. But he's a college coordinator. Can he come in and dominate? We'll see. The Bengals, I love Joe Burrow. So I'd love to see the Bengals be a really good team, be a competitive team. But I'm going with Steelers number 2 for history, precedent, and that's what Mike Tomlin does. Bengals 3rd, likely miss the playoffs again. And the Cleveland Browns are in number 4, looking to draft a quarterback April 2026. That brings us to the NFC North. Lots happening in this division. Different teams with different expectations, but I think every team in this division is actually a good team. Every team in this division, I said this last year, didn't turn out to be right because some complications. But every team in this division could make the playoffs. Absolutely, without question. Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit all made the playoffs last year. Minnesota won the division. The only team that didn't make the playoffs was the Chicago Bears. It was Caleb Williams' rookie season. He was sacked 68 times behind a bad offensive line, but also he was sacked 68 times because he made bad, poor decisions inside and outside the pocket. Through last year, they fired Matt Eberflus. And after years of Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson mulling options, talking about different places he could go, Is he going to stay in Detroit, stay a coordinator? He decides to become the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Takes the job in division to pair himself with Caleb Williams. Last year was a lot of bad tape for Caleb Williams, but he had 3 different play callers. Just a lot of up and down confusion. Never looked like they had a set game plan. He had poor mechanics. He had poor footwork. And this offseason, it was about him learning Ben Johnson's offense and being ready to play a hell of a lot better. He played Sunday night in the preseason. Looked good, looked sharp, looked solid. He was taken number 1 overall, so he should. DeAndre Swift returns for the Bears at running back. Still have DJ Moore, Rome Odunze entering year number 2, University of Washington product. They draft Luther Burden III in the 2nd round from Missouri. Was a first-round guy on many people's draft boards. Still have Cole Kmet, and they drafted Colston Loveland, number 10 overall, the rookie from the University of Michigan, who I think is awesome. When it comes to weapons, I love their weapons. DJ Moore is awesome. He just needs space, and you need to give him the ball. Play him in the slot. You have 2 big-bodied receivers now in Odunze and Luther Burden Jr. III. Have DJ Moore run in the middle of the field where he has space to run, beat defenders, and create plays. Enough of him being on the outside so much. I don't think that's where he does his best work, personally. Odunze was awesome in college. I think he can be awesome in the NFL, make contested catches. He's a gamer. Was on that Washington team that got to the national championship. Luther Burden Jr. III had ups and downs in college. Some scouts loved him, some hated him. Had some drop issues. Some people question his competitiveness. Playing on a Missouri team that struggled in large part. What I will say is he never transferred. I give him credit for that in this new NIL world. Stayed at Mizzou the whole time. Played in the SEC conference, playing Alabama, playing Georgia. So he's played good defensive schemes. He's gone up against good defensive coaches, good defensive players, a lot of them now in the NFL. And now you got Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet. I love the 1-2 pairing at tight end. Both can block. Kmet, not as well, but Loveland can block. I want to see bootlegs, Caleb on the run, design runs for him, bootlegs to get tight ends in space. They can have explosive plays. They can be a great offense. Offensive line was another reason for the 68 sacks allowed. They've made a lot of changes here. Braxton Jones, one guy who stays. Joe Thuney comes in from Kansas City. They didn't want to give him a new deal. They had to sign other guys, so they traded him to the Bears. So he comes in, he'll go back to his typical guard position. He was playing tackle last year. One of the big free agents, Drew Dahlman, the center, used to play for the Atlanta Falcons, joins the Bears. Jonah Jackson, formerly of the Rams, Super Bowl champ, played with the Lions the last number of years. He joins the Chicago Bears via free agency. Darnell Wright, who they drafted from Tennessee last year, still on the team. So 3 new offensive linemen. Disastrous O-line. They're hoping, bringing in some veterans, they can stabilize the position and build a solid team that can protect their quarterback, run the ball effectively, and be competitive in a highly competitive division. The question always is, can an offensive line gel together? Can they mesh? We won't know until the season starts. I love Dahlman. Joe Thuney has played at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level for the majority of his career in Kansas City. He's played in a lot of high-profile games, unlike many of these Bears players. He's a veteran that has cachet that I think will be a leader. I like the signings. Will they work? We'll see, but I credit Ryan Poles for doing this. They had a top 10 defense last year, the Bears, in the first half of the season. Then it kind of went away. Second half of the year, they were 31st against the run. 31st. They add Grady Jarrett from the Falcons. Bring in TJ Edwards from Buffalo. Still have Montez Sweat. Jalen Johnson, stud. Kevin Byard Jr. III. Kyler Gordon, another great corner. And they bring in a new defensive coordinator in Dennis Allen, former head coach of the Saints. He's a guy that's meant to be a coordinator, not meant to be a head coach. And that's okay. They know that. He knows that. I think he's in a good spot. It's a talented defense with a lot of good players that can make plays. This Bears team is better than it was last year. I can say that definitively. Caleb Williams has all the potential in the world to be a top 10 quarterback. It was a brutal rookie season, but that doesn't define a career. That doesn't mean he's going to be crap for the rest of his career. New head coach, new defensive coordinator. I like all of that. Ben Johnson's offenses, whether it was with Stafford, whether it was Jared Goff, they've been really good in Detroit. They've been creative. He has unique plays. And I think they'll continue that tradition in Chicago at Soldier Field, playing against the Lions. Now, this team, and every team in this division, but you look at the Bears who finished last, you got to play Detroit twice, you got to play Green Bay twice, and you got to play Minnesota twice. That's no easy task. That's a hard year to do that. I think Caleb's going to have a good season. I think the Bears are going to have a decent season. I can't say they're going to have a great season. I think they're going to have a good season. Compete hard. Be alive in most games late into the fourth quarter. The key sign for Caleb will be his pocket awareness and his ability to stay in the pocket and not panic when it gets a little hairy for him. Because they have the talent to be competitive. They have the talent to be better than one team at least in this division, maybe more. The Bears start their season, Monday Night Football, at home against the Vikings. Then go to Detroit, host the Cowboys, at the Raiders, their first 4 games. Not Murderer's Row, but certainly tough. Short week going from Monday Night Football to playing the Lions the next week in Detroit. I can't wait to watch Chicago. I think they're going to have a good season. I think Caleb's going to play well. How good they'll be remains to be seen. But I think the Bears are going to be improved. Their offensive line's going to be better. Caleb's going to be better. I like their group. I misspoke. The Detroit Lions won the division last year, not Minnesota. So Minnesota had such an incredible year under Sam Darnold. It came down to the last week of the season for the Minnesota Vikings. They lost to Detroit. They then go the next week. They lose in the wild card weekend. And it was just it was a weird end to the season for Minnesota. They entered the offseason. They decide not to re-sign Sam Darnold. They let him walk. He goes to Seattle after a career year. And it's the start of the J.J. McCarthy era in Minnesota. He didn't play a down last year because he tore his meniscus in the second preseason game. Sam Darnold got the looks, had a great year. And you thought, well, maybe they'll bring back Sam, work J.J. in slowly. But no, it's J.J.'s team. He's the starting quarterback. Heisman Trophy winner. National champion at Michigan. So, in saying that, they re-sign Aaron Jones Sr. They bring on Jordan Mason, running back from the San Francisco 49ers. So they have a two-headed monster at running back. They have the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. They have Jordan Addison, who's fantastic, but he will be suspended the first game of the season because of a reckless driving charge that he was dealing with. Without Jordan Addison, it gets thin. TJ Hawkinson's a great tight end, missed most of last year. Jalen Nailor is okay. So their skill position players are great, top level, but if there are injuries, it can be dire straits for Minnesota because it's hard to replace Justin Jefferson. Hard to find guys better just sitting on the couch that will give you that kind of production. And the question is, how good is J.J. McCarthy going to be? At Michigan, he was sheltered. They were a running football team. They had a game at Michigan where he threw 3 passes in the second half of a win. He was not the focal point on a winning team. So there's interest there. Minnesota didn't have a great offensive line. Sam Darnold was sacked 8 times in the wild card loss. He was sacked 5 times in that loss to Detroit. So Christian Darrisaw, who missed most of last year, torn ACL, he's returning. They drafted Donovan Jackson, a guard from The Ohio State University. They signed Ryan Kelly, the center from Indianapolis. They also bring on the right guard, Wolf Fries, from Indianapolis. They keep their veteran, Brian O'Neill. So a new look offensive line that they're hoping, like Chicago, will be better at protecting the quarterback, in particular in those key moments. Defensively, Jonathan Allen comes over from Washington. Harrison Phillips, the veteran, still there. They bring on Javon Hargrave from San Francisco. Blake Cashman was awesome last year. Jonathan Greenyard was great last year. Van Ginkel was awesome. Joshua Metellus was very productive. Harrison Smith, veteran, still at his advanced age, still good in the NFL. And they have Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. He's one of the best coordinators in football. Very blitz-heavy, attack the offense type scheme from Brian Flores. J.J. McCarthy's an unknown. He's a redshirt rookie who we've never really seen play all that much. NFL, we haven't seen him play at all. Now, I think Kevin O'Connell is a really good offensive coordinator, a really smart offensive mind. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be successful, but it certainly helps. They have two running backs that I think are going to split carries. Aaron Jones Sr., Jordan Mason. Two guys that are different, kind of fire and ice, if you will. Mason's kind of in between the tackles, power running back. Aaron Jones can be used more third downs in the passing game. Jefferson's as good as it gets for a young quarterback, for any quarterback. You want him on the field because he's just a safety blanket that's going to get open and make 8 to 10 catches a game if you throw him the ball. Jordan Addison's as good as a number 2 as it gets when he's available. For Minnesota, they won a ton of games last year. They won a ton of games, and that typically flips. And Sam Darnold was awesome. Awesome. They were 14-3. Won a lot of close games. Had the best record in NFL history. That was a team that ended up being a wildcard team because Detroit was 15-2. A team in their own division. As I mentioned, Lions, Vikings, Packers, all playoff teams last year. Packers were 11-6. I think the Vikings are a good team again. And I think they got really good coaches. And they got good players. But in saying that, there's just something I'm not buying about this team. Back-to-back incredible years. The contract that Darnold got from Seattle, I would have brought him back because he basically only got 1 year of really good guaranteed money. And I think Sam Darnold and Seattle are actually going to have a good season. We'll get to the West next week. But I like the running backs. I like the receiver. But if there's injuries on this team, if things go awry, they're in trouble. And history tells us you win a lot of close games. You're 14-3 and you're winning games by 3-4 points. You eke it out. Minnesota did this a number of years ago with Kirk D. Cousins. They missed the playoffs the next year. And I'll pull that up. (2022) 13-4, 2023 7-10, 2024 14-3. History tells us they will fall back. Caleb Williams struggled in his rookie year. This is J.J. McCarthy's rookie year. He's a freshman because he didn't get to play last year. There's a difference. Good team, but they're in a division full of good teams. That brings us to the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay made Jordan Love one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. It was puzzling when they did it. And Jordan Love is an interesting quarterback because I think he's really good. But then there's also games you watch him and you go, what the hell was that? What happened here? He misses open throws. He has bad pocket awareness. He misses guys down the field. He is a burner in Christian Watson. They don't seem to have a great connection. So there's questions there. I do think he's really talented. Do I think he's played like a top 10 quarterback in the league since getting the contract, since entering the league, quite frankly? No. Hasn't. And I like the Packers, but Jordan Love hasn't played that way. Does he have the ability? Sure. Matt LaFleur remains in Green Bay, remains the play caller. Josh Jacobs comes back to Green Bay. Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, who was great. They draft Matthew Golden out of the University of Texas, hook him. Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft at tight end. It's a solid receiver room. I think what Green Bay goes for is diversity and just a whole bunch of guys that can play, and that's a great thing. Christian Watson's a burner that could have an 80-yard touchdown any time of the game. And he's incredibly fast. He's injured a lot, but when he's on the field, he's a threat, and you have to game plan for him. But as I mentioned, him and Jordan Love not always on the same page. Romeo Doubs, been there a while, is solid in the red zone. Will have a game where he goes 8 for $140 and then goes 4 for 24. Good at creating space, good at in-tight catches. I think he's a tough receiver. Jaden Reed is awesome in the slot, creating plays, fast as well. To me, he was their best receiver last year. With Jordan Love, I thought he was incredibly productive and brought it, quite frankly. In a season where he was a rookie, 857 yards, 6 touchdowns. Awesome for Jaden Reed. Awesome. Matthew Golden, I think he's going to be good. Was good at Texas, playing with Quinn Ewers. They have another wide receiver room where they have a lot of options where guys can step out. And if a guy isn't playing well, you got somebody behind you that probably can step in and play pretty well. So you're going to be pushed to be productive, which I like. Offensive line, Rashad Walker, Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. Similar group to last year. Could they run the ball better? Yes. Could they create more time for Jordan Love? Sure, but he needs to do a better job as well, just not escaping the pocket and making stupid throws. And not having him turn the ball over, because most of his interceptions are his fault. If we're just being honest about Jordan Love, 11 interceptions last year. Yeesh. Defensively, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Lucas Van Ness, Isaiah McDuffie, Xavier McKinney. They have a very similar group coming back as the defense that they had last year. A defense that helped the team go 11-6, make the playoffs, and lose wildcard weekend. This team was a playoff team last year, and they very much could be a playoff team again. Now, you got tough teams in the NFC. We talked about, I think the Bears could be better. You got Minnesota, was a playoff team last year. Washington, I think Dallas will be spicy and competitive. You got the Eagles, the defending champions. You got the Bucks, who are good. Could be another team in the South, potentially, that could bring some noise. NFC West, I like Seattle. I think Seattle's going to be, we'll talk about them more. I think Seattle's going to be a good team. The Rams are Super Bowl worthy, absolutely. San Francisco, we'll see. Arizona could be sneaky good. So I think the NFC is competitive, absolutely. But Green Bay should look at the season and say, we got to be a playoff team. That should be at least the goal. Because they're a good enough team to be a playoff team. Will they? We'll see. But I like Green Bay. I like Matt LaFleur. Jordan Love can be better, should be better, gets paid incredibly well, doesn't deserve to be paid what he's paid at this point. And again, Packers fans, you get mad at me. Check the tape, bro. Packers start their season, host the Lions. Thursday night, host the Commanders. At Cleveland, at Dallas. Those first two games, nice games to have at home. That's what I'll say. But Lions and Thursday night, host Commies. That's tough sledding. And you got to be pissed for the Packers. The Lions get to go to Green Bay week 1, so they don't get to play in the snow. Schedule makers doing a favor to the Lions. That brings us to the Lions. 15-2 last season. Incredible year. End up losing to the Washington football team in the divisional round in a massive upset. Jaden Daniels goes to Detroit and gets the W. It was a Super Bowl year for the Lions. It was their time, but they came up short. Dan Campbell has turned the program around. They are a perennial competitor, perennial favorite. But you have a great team and you have great coaches and people notice you. Well, what happens? A team in your own division. Chicago Bears scoop up your offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, to be your head coach. He's gone. Aaron Glenn, a defensive coordinator who's had a lot of success. The Jets scoop him up to be their head coach. They lose their passing game coordinator to San Francisco. John Morton comes in to be their new offensive coordinator. They have a new defensive coordinator. So a lot of changes. Not to mention Frank Ragnow, former All-Pro, a Pro Bowl center, retired. He really was he kept that line together. He was their pulse. And it was a bit of a surprising decision, but he played a long time and said, I've had enough. It's time for me. So Frank Ragnow retired. So 2 coordinators, a passing game coordinator, and your center all go. That's a lot. Now, you keep Jared Goff, who's been great ever since coming to Detroit. If you haven't watched the show Quarterback on Netflix, I see Brad in the chat. Yeah, there is a lot of coordinators, a lot more coaches than players. We'll get to Frank Ragnow is gone, so they're gonna have a new center. But Jared Goff, if you haven't watched Quarterback, he really adopted Detroit. He feel like they gave him a second chance at life where the Rams just said, screw you. And Goff's been great. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, the 1-2 punch. Jahmyr Gibbs needs to get the ball more. That's my one complaint with the Lions. Enough of David Montgomery getting majority of the touches. Jahmyr Gibbs is so talented. Bijan Robinson is the feature back in Atlanta. Jahmyr Gibbs should be the feature back and some in Detroit. You drafted him 9th overall for a reason. Play his ass. Amon-Ra St. Brown, All-Pro season, stops in. Jameson Williams, who I still think is scratching the surface because he had a suspension for PEDs. He's been injured. He's had tons of stuff with him. Was great at Alabama. I think he can be great in the NFL in the slot, big plays, 7-8 touchdowns this year. We'll see. I like Jameson Williams. Tim Patrick returns. Sam Laporta, the Oregon State Beaver, remains at tight end. Offensive line, there is changes. Taylor Decker comes back. Christian Mahogany, who didn't play a whole lot last year because they had a good offensive line, but when he did play, he looked good. Graham Glasgow used to be a right guard. He's now pivoting to center, with Fred Ragnow retiring. So he's moving right guard to center, been there, done that, knows what they're doing. So they keep, kind of the legend, if you will. Tate Ratledge, second-round draft pick out of University of Georgia. He comes in, and they also have Penei Sewell, who will likely be in the Hall of Fame someday, who's just been a horse since coming into the league. So changes. Offensive line moves, a strength of your team. Your offensive coordinator departs. That's a big deal. All of these are different. Working, new person in the ear of Jared Goff, new center calling signs, directing traffic, adjusting to a new position. So these are all potential things that could be worrisome for Detroit. Could they overcome them because they're smart and Jared Goff's great and I like Dan Campbell? Yeah, and Detroit's still a great team? Absolutely. Defensively, Aiden Hutchinson didn't play a whole lot last year because he broke his leg. But he's back. He's healthy. He's going to be available week 1. He's one of the favorites to win Comeback Player of the Year, and he's also one of the favorites to lead the league in sacks. I don't mind that bet. DJ Reader comes in to Detroit. Marcus Davenport stays. They re-signed Alex Anzalone. They gave Jack Campbell a contract. He's been a great player. Terrion Arnold, corner who struggled last year, played at Alabama, incredibly confident about himself, which I like. I think he can bounce back again second year. Brian Branch is a stud of studs. DJ Reed, Kirby Joseph, veterans back there. They lost to Washington because they couldn't get a stop, period. And also because Jaden Daniels is elite. But they couldn't stop him. Aiden Hutchinson will help. DJ Reader will help. Anzalone being healthy will help. Jack Campbell being on the field more will help. This defense wasn't healthy. We got to remember that. Aaron Glenn as a coordinator in those playoff games wasn't very good. We got to remember that. Detroit went 15-2. I don't think they're going to go 15-2 again because that's incredibly difficult. So looking at it a certain way, you could go, no matter what, their season's going to be a failure because they won't have as good a record as they had the previous year. I don't look at it that way. I think they can have a greater season, get to the playoffs, and go on a longer run. I think it's going to be a difficult year for them again because they have a really tough division. And they had a brutal division, and they went 15-2 last year. They swept the Packers. They swept the Bears. They lost one game to the Vikings. I want to poke holes in the Lions. I do. They got tough games, certainly. But they're one of the best teams in the league. I hear people saying they could be a team that falls off a cliff. I don't think it's going to be them. At Packers, host the Bears, at Ravens. Brutal, first 3 games. Host the Browns, at Bengals, at Chiefs, host Bucks, host Vikings. That's their first 2 months. Tough schedule. They got a couple losses in there, for sure. Saying all that, I still think the Detroit Lions are going to win the division. Because I think they're the best team in the division, and I also think they have the best quarterback in the division. And they can score points. If it's a contest to see who can score 30 first, I'm going with the Lions in this division. They have the players to do it. They have the running backs. Their offensive line might take some time, but let it build. Will they win the Super Bowl? Who will make that prediction as we get closer to the season? Do I think they'll win the NFC North? I do. Second place in this division. I'm going with the Packers. third last year, second this year. Jordan Love will play better. They have a good team. They have a multitude of weapons. Their defense was solid last year. Wasn't elite, but it was okay. I think it'll be okay again. Need to be better in close games, which I think they will be. But I have Green Bay number 2. Number 3, I have the Chicago Bears. I believe the changes the Bears have made will work. I was closer to putting the Bears number 2, but I went with the Packers. The Bears will be fighting towards the back end of the year to be a playoff team. I believe in Caleb. I believe in Ben Johnson as a coach. DJ Moore, Odunze, these players, an offensive line that has veterans that know how to play football. From what I watched on Sunday, I saw a quarterback that knows how to play in the pocket and knows when to not run and put himself in harm's way. Be smarter about taking sacks. Valuing field position. He didn't last year. Defense, to me, is already great. They just need to play more consistently. At their apex, they are a top 10 to top 12 defense, the Bears. Truly believe that. I have them finishing above the Vikings. The Vikings, who went 14-3 last year, I think finished last this year. For a multitude of reasons. Number 1, I think they have a very slim margin of error. They're going to have to win a lot of close games, and they did that last year. If they get injuries to their offensive skill position players, they are screwed because they don't have depth. If you look at the Bucks, Tampa Bay Bucks depth chart, you look at Kansas City's depth chart, you look at the Lions, teams that have players that can step in and play. Minnesota really doesn't. They don't. So Justin Jefferson goes down. Addison's already going to miss 4 games. They're screwed. J.J. McCarthy, rookie season, growing pains. I like their running backs, but even still, they're going to have a lot that they need to learn. A lot could go wrong. Their defense, it's okay. It's not great. It's older. Went 14-3, but won 8 games within 6 points or less. That's not going to happen again. I think Caleb will be better than J.J. McCarthy this season. I think the Bears will be better than the Vikings this year. Vikings won't make the playoffs after going 14-3. Just hard to believe. But I don't think so. That was the AFC North, NFC North preview. Friday, we'll be doing AFC South / NFC South. That'll be Friday morning. We'll get into the West and the East next week as we get closer to the start of the NFL season. I love doing this. If you couldn't tell, I love nerding out, using my legal pad like the great Tony Kornheiser to get things ready. Friday morning, we'll dive into the South divisions. 2 weeks tomorrow till the NFL season starts. On Monday, we'll do a deeper dive into the college football season. So tune in for that. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Thank you for the comments. I love the interaction on the channel. We'll talk to you on Friday. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.